Hi, this is the Social Gello with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Gello with Angelo show.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Social Gello with Angelo podcast. This is a special episode where I'm answering guests' questions, and I have the guests' questions. Sorry, I meant to say I'm answering subscribers' questions, and I have multiple guests jumping in and helping me answer some of these questions with me. Today, right now, we have Carlos de la Valle, who's at a seminar and has taken his gracious time to quickly answer a question before he gets back into training, because bro is always training. That's one thing he definitely is always doing. This question is coming to us from Concorso 2424. I went to try out a boxing gym and had students holding pads for each other that couldn't hold them, and it messed me up, and I messed up the combinations. I think the coach is the only one that should be holding pads. What do you think? So this is really coming down to the idea of how much one-to-one time should a coach be giving a class, and how does that work? Carlos, have you come across this? You've trained at a bunch of places and you also coach. How do you get around this thing? What do you think about that comment?
Well, the beauty of what I do is that I get to see how different people do things. And you know, as a paying member of a school, you should have somebody that knows what they're doing, giving you the attention that you're paying for. You know, and it's okay. It's definitely fine if if you're in a beginner class and it's explained to somebody, hey, somebody's learning how to punch, but somebody's learning how to hold the pads also. Holding pads is also just as important as learning how to do the punches, you know, because it's part of your growth. You know, you need to learn how to hold pads the right way. That in itself, and you know this, it's an art. That's an art form in itself, just holding pads, especially when you do things like Muay Thai. You know, Muay Thai is no joke when you hold pads. You better hold those things correctly or you're going to feel it. So it's an art, but I mean, and I get where the question's coming from, because sometimes people I've seen instructors, you go to certain schools and they walk away and they put an orange belt to teach the whole entire class. And like, what is this? Like, this guy doesn't even know how to tie his belt correctly, and he's teaching class. So it's people that pay that really want to learn should get the best experience before they leave, because they will leave you.
Yeah, and my response to him actually was, it's a rough one, right? Because like you said, holding pads is a skill in itself, and as a coach, when you're running a class, and this is what I told him, I suggested private lessons. Like, hey, if you want to get the best bang for your buck, private lessons. That's why coaches provide private lessons. Like, that's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. If you're going to be in a class, you have to remember, and I've said this before, and I didn't say this to him this way, but I'm always talking to the people I work with. When you're in a class, it's not all about you. There's 30 people in a class.
That's a great answer too. Yeah, that's a great answer.
So like that's a great answer. And I didn't tell him that. I was nicer about it. I said, inherently people are going to suck when they hold the pads. And there's not enough time in one class for a coach to hold pads for an entire class. And that's what private lessons are for.
It's no joke. It's and even if you try, you teach, you own your school. When you teach, you can't spend 5 minutes with one person. You got to keep walking around. You go, you make your correction. Even 10 seconds is a long time. If you count 10 seconds, 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1. The correct way, 10 seconds is a long time.
Look,
and 20, you do that with every student. Yeah,
20 students, what you just said, 20 students, 10 seconds, that's 2 minutes. If I told you to do a 3-minute drill, if I told you to do a 3-minute drill, I got 20 students, you all got 10 seconds of me. And as you know, 10 seconds still isn't enough. Like 10 seconds is me being like, 10 seconds is me being like, hey, you're doing that wrong. Why? Because your hand should be up a little more. Where? I'll explain to you next time. that's going to be a correction.
1,000%. Yes, sir. I agree with you. Yeah, like, and when you fight, when you get into the arts, Kajukenbo, Muay Thai, whatever, time moves. It's like in slow motion. For some odd reason, it's like 10 seconds is like an eternity, but it's not.
Yeah, it's a
So
split
you
second.
know, all these things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, so to the gentleman asking the questions, I mean, is it a beginner class? Like, you know, is it a beginner class? Because then the coach should explain to everybody, hey, we're learning how to punch, but we're also learning how to hold pads. So don't be, you know, the holders is learning just as much as the person that's doing the striking. So work with each other. You know, it
Yeah.
should be a learning environment for both.
Yep. There's gonna be please be patient, is what I said. Well,
Please be patient. Yeah.
Well, Carlos, thank you so much for taking your time to answer that question. So our next comment is coming here from Eduardo Huera 4151. And he's responding to a video, a short that I did called Stop Faking MMA Point Fighters and Championship Belts. Well, I think the fault is up to the promoters who give belts, championship belts, instead of trophies and medals, which are usually given at these type of point karate tournaments. I don't like it when they call a point karate tournament a world championship when 99% of the competitors are from the same country. I mean, yeah, he made a really good point, right? So some people will promote a karate tournament and call it a world championship because and I think but there's a distinction here, right? So KSDI has a world championship tournament every year in Las Vegas, but to their credit, they do have people coming from all over the world because Kajuken was practiced all over the world. So you have people from the Puerto Rico team, people from the Germany team. You have people from all over the world coming to compete at the tournament or coming to participate and bring their students. I think last year they had Puerto Rico. They were naming off the countries and they all brought their flags too. It was like Puerto Rico, I believe I think it was Kuwait. I think the Kuwait team was there. But either way, long story short, it was actually a world championship. So this isn't to diss people who actually do that. But I also have seen the others. I remember the first MMA tournament I ever did was advertised as an international MMA tournament. And they didn't even use the word MMA. They used the word mixed martial arts and then like the long form. This is like 20 years ago. But yeah, and then when we got there, the reason they said international is because they had a visiting instructor that came. He did some esoteric kung fu style, and he did some long form and a long speech, and that's why they called it international because they had one guy, and he wasn't even competing. So like in that case, you know that the promoters, in my opinion, they kind of fucked up on that one. Let's check out this next comment. So this next comment is coming from A. Fenry. It's always hard with these YouTube handles. Why most people quit martial arts in 1 year? I think most people have an idea they want to do martial arts and then they jump and they discover, oh crap, this takes work. And so they drop it. The people who persevere have some kind of significant goal. They're trying to compete, or they have the martial arts thing down inside of them and they won't let them live. They can't live without it. So and if they quit. But that's not the majority of the population. By a long shot, meanwhile, in order to make money and keep your gym running, the owner has to cater to kids, a karate daycare. I like that. Kickboxer size for women. Hopefully the owner gets to spend some time with the actual fighters in martial arts who are serious about progressing. Somebody once said people who can fight can't pay, and people who can pay don't fight, or something like that. So that last part was an interesting bit, right? The idea of when you're a gym owner, you have to kind of navigate this in between where you cater to people who aren't going to progress. And that's where I'm going to kind of push back on that challenge. As a gym owner and as someone who teaches a traditional martial art with a ranking system, I want to see everyone progress. I want to see everyone progress from my one of my top students who out here in Japan. He's a military commander. He's an MP police commander. I forgot. I'm probably using the titles wrong, but yeah, he came in with the goal of wanting to do MMA, but he also has a professional career. So he's not looking to become a professional MMA fighter, but the military makes him compete in Japan in this really strange rule set where they hold sticks in full armor and they beat the crap out of each other with armor and sticks. And it's kind of a weird mix of stick fighting and judo. I forgot the name of it. I'll have to do a podcast on that all on its own. But the point is, that was his goal, and he wants to do MMA to get better at that. So it's kind of like a cross goal. and he's doing MMA, and he's already won his first full contact kickboxing match. He's already won several times, and as a white belt, he's already placed several times gold in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in gi and no gi, and then he got his blue belt recently, and he got third place. He's working his way up now in the blue belt ranks. So he's kind of working towards the same kind of goal as a professional fighter would, but he doesn't want to be a professional fighter. But he's one of my top students, and he's a very big prospect as far as a coach because he's already a military instructor as well. Now, I can't compare him to my other student who I'm not going to name any names, keep it confidential, but we'll call him Little Timmy. He's not Little Timmy. We'll call him Little Kentaro because I teach in Japan. Little Kentaro's mom approached me and said that he's being bullied at school and that she's really worried because little Kentaro has health issues and heart palpitations and a whole slew of things. And the doctor's kind of worried about him even training. So for little Kentaro, I had to come up with a training plan that would help him train and still be within the doctor's guidelines. And at first, the mom was really concerned. She said, I don't want him to spar. I don't want him to hit the bag. I don't want him to do any cardio because he's got heart palpitations. So we had a conversation with the doctor. How much can he and cannot? How much can he do? How much can he not do? What are the signs? How do I keep it? I can't obviously push him as hard as the military commander. So I got to find an in-between to push this kid to help him. Because one of the things I told the mom, though, I'm like, if he's being bullied at school, the bigger concern is if he's getting beat up at school, he's going to be forced. He's got heart palpitations. He's going to be forced into a situation. And that's more dangerous if he has no tools to defend himself, because now he might get hurt. No, he's going to get hurt, and he has heart palpitations. So we have to find an in-between. And quitting is not an option. Very different goals. And to me, both of them need to progress in martial arts. So I don't really prioritize students as, oh, this person's not going to progress, so I'm just going to put them to the side and turn it into a karate daycare. I don't think that way. And I maybe I should. I'm lucky I'm lucky that teaching martial arts is not my main source of income. That's one thing I can say. Yeah, teaching martial arts is not my main source of income. So I have that leeway in that aspect. But yeah, really good comment, man. Really good comment. All right, our last comment goes to Ginger Core 69. The black belt burnout. Why do so many people quit after getting their rank? Very interesting video. I had to quit martial arts after I got my black belt because of discrimination. I came out of the closet and the whole martial arts world rejected me. I'm not really sure what time period this was in, but I do know that as far as this is going to be a very touchy subject. I try to stay away from political. This shouldn't be a political conversation. I see this where I call this show Social Gello with Angelo because I have a background in psychology. So I see this as a social issue. I don't see this as a political issue before I start sharing my thoughts on this particular topic. Just going to throw that little disclaimer out there. I want to say that society has changed quite a bit since my generation to this generation. And I've even noticed that there's gyms now that, I've never heard of this, but I recently heard of a gym that literally is making what they would call a safe space. And it made a big wave in the jiu-jitsu community. But yeah, they made they made a whole, it was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically. One of the schools came out and said that they're doing programs that are only for LGBTQ individuals. And it caused a commotion with some people going on both sides saying that this shouldn't exist. People should just be open or whatever it is. But I think it's interesting because my generation would never have this conversation. And I think the comment that was made by Gingercore brings up a good point that, a few generations ago, if you even had this discussion, if it even got said, you would face a big backlash and you would feel so uncomfortable that you would have to leave or you wouldn't have to, but you would feel like you'd want to leave because of feeling uncomfortable around the wrong environment. So I really want to say that, it is a problem that has come up. But Gingercore, I really would look into it. There's plenty. I don't know at what point and what style you were practicing, but I would like to say that maybe give it another shot. Look around there. If Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has classes that are that are specifically for LGBTQ folk to join. I'm sure there's other martial arts programs out there that have similar stuff, if that's the kind of thing you were interested in. And I'd like to have, more hope in society in general, or faith in society in general. But I'm sure there's some classes out there that you could find that would be more open to who you are as a person. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's definitely not cool. Well, that was our last comment. What do you think? We covered 3 different topics, right? We started off with the idea of how much time should a coach give to their student. And then we moved into our next one, which talked a little bit about championship fighting and belts and world championships and whether they should be handing out belts at point karate tournaments. And we wrapped up with a hot topic. How should a coach handle someone who comes from a minority population based on their sexual orientation? Should there be separate classes? Should there be a discussion made about class ethic? I don't know. Put it in the comments. And thank you for coming out for another episode of Social Gello with Angelo podcast. Catch y'all next time.
This has been a Social Gello production. If you're interested in being on the show, feel free to reach out. Just email me at socialgello@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow me on social media, Instagram, Social Gello, Facebook, Social Gello with Angelo, or follow me on my personal page under Angelo Ferrer. LinkedIn, search Angelo Ferrer. YouTube, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, make sure to check out my YouTube channel, Social Gello with Angelo YouTube channel. And wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other platform, make sure to follow and subscribe and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next time.